Have you ever spent months with someone, texting constantly, spending weekends together, sharing real emotional intimacy, and then you found yourself Googling, what does it mean when a person says that they're not ready for a serious relationship? Like at 2 in the morning, unable to name what you actually have with this person. That experience now has a name, and it is becoming the defining romantic pattern of our generation. Today, we're going to look at the psychology of situationships, what the research actually says, why they are rising, and what they are quietly doing to us. Let's start with a definition. A 2024 study by researcher Mickey Langley, published in the Journal of Sexuality and Culture, defines situationships as romantic relationships that involve spending time together and engaging in physical and sexual activity, but where there is no label and commitment is low. They lack a label and commitment, but they mimic other aspects of dating and relationships, spending time together, introducing a partner to others, engaging in sexual intimacy. You get all the texture of a relationship, but you do not get the definition or promise or any future. Tinder's 2022 year in swipe report found a 49% increase in members adding the word situationship to their bios, with young singles saying they prefer situationships as a way to develop relationship with less pressure. Less pressure, think about it. That phrase is doing enormous psychological work, and we need to unpack it. Because here's the thing, the research also shows situationships are overall significantly less satisfying and of lower quality than exclusive romantic relationships, and yet people keep choosing them. My personal core hypothesis is this: people are not choosing situationships because they are broken or because they do not want love. They're choosing situationships because, in a very rational way, a situationship is the path of least psychological resistance in a world that has fundamentally changed what commitment costs. Here's what I mean. A committed relationship requires you to change. Not to abandon yourself, but to undergo the ongoing calibration that sustained intimacy demands. You're learning another person's emotional language. You're tolerating conflict rather than avoiding it. You're trying to genuinely know this person and let them know yourself. These are skills that have to be built through discomfort, unfortunately. And people only move toward that kind of change when the motivation to do so exceeds the resistance. When there is no cultural pressure to commit, when alternative partners feel endlessly available, when independence is celebrated as the highest social value, many people simply do not reach the motivational threshold that relational change requires. The situationship lets you have warmth, physical intimacy, and companionship without paying the psychological cost of full commitment. For a person who prioritizes themselves in a world full of options, it's not irrational, it's actually quite logical. Also, technology is central to this because dating apps have restructured the fundamental experience of partner availability. Before apps, your pool of potential partners was defined by geography. Scarcity created urgency, and urgency moved people toward definition. Apps eliminated scarcity. The psychologist Barry Schwartz, in his book The Paradox of Choice, argues that having too many choices leads to decision paralysis and fear of commitment. Situationships allow people to keep their options open while avoiding the perceived finality of commitment and choice. And when commitment feels like closing a door on infinite possibility, it starts to feel like loss rather than gain. You're not choosing someone, you're giving everyone else up. And under those conditions, the situationship becomes a way of having intimacy while maintaining optionality. Digital connection has also changed what proximity means. A relationship can now exist almost entirely online. Ambiguity is much easier to sustain at a distance. The situationship thrives in digital space because digital space doesn't demand clarity. Now let's bring in attachment theory because it explains why specific people end up in situationships and, crucially, why they stay. Research established that adults have one of four attachment styles: secure, anxious preoccupied, dismissive avoidant, and fearful avoidant. Securely attached people tend to disengage from undefined dynamics relatively early. They have enough self-worth to name what they need and leave when it cannot be met. The attachment system protects them. Avoidant individuals often fear closeness and they feel suffocated by too much intimacy. A situationship offers them connection without the expectations of a committed relationship. For the avoidant person, the situationship is not a compromise. It is genuinely ideal because there is no vulnerability and they can feel that warmth without accountability. Anxious types often stay longer in confusing dynamics because they are also hoping that emotional effort they make will eventually lead to commitment from another person. They do not stay because the relationship is fulfilling. They stay because leaving would mean facing the abandonment they have been dreading since long before this person came along. The interplay of these styles can create a push-pull dynamic in which the anxious partner wants more and the avoidant partner resists, and the situationship drags on in a loop of unmet expectations. This pairing, anxious and avoidant, is the most common engine driving situationships forward. Both partners are acting from deep old patterns. Gender also shapes how this plays out. Research has found that men preferred short-term romantic relationships with a low level of commitment in the context of online dating, while women use dating sites to find friends or potential marriage partners. This asymmetry means that two people can enter the same situationship with fundamentally different interior maps. He may be comfortable with ambiguity. She may be tolerating ambiguity while hoping it resolves into something defined. Neither person is necessarily deceiving the other. They simply may not be having the same experience. For women, the costs tend to accumulate differently than for men because research suggests that situationships feel fine at first because the early phase of undefined connection is a normal stage of romantic relationships and involvement. But when it goes on indefinitely, when someone becomes stuck in that liminal space, the person who wants more often suppresses that need because asking for more feels like it will cause the exact abandonment that they are afraid of. And that suppression is the emotional core of the situationship trap. You stay silent about what you need because speaking it feels more dangerous than not having it met. Why do people stay even when they know it is not working? Two mechanisms are especially important here. Situationships do offer real perks: occasional emotional intimacy, frequent physical intimacy, companionship. People are more likely to stay in a relationship, even an unclear or unsatisfying one, if the pros seem to outweigh the cons. Second, the sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy refers to the human tendency to keep investing in something because we have already invested so much in it. In situationships, this sounds like, we have been seeing each other for 6 months already, or I have invested so much energy into this, I cannot just leave now. Paradoxically, the inconsistency is what keeps people hooked. What does all of this cost us over time? Higher involvement in situationships is associated with higher levels of anxiety and attachment insecurity. Individuals in undefined connections often report higher anxiety, lower self-esteem, and more emotional burnout compared to those in committed relationships. The constant questioning, do they really care? Am I overthinking this? Create low-grade emotional stress, and it mirrors chronic relational instability. The nervous system registers relational uncertainty as threat. When that threat never resolves, when there's never a moment of being definitely chosen, the system stays perpetually alert. Over time, that costs people their ability to trust, to relax into future relationships, to believe that their needs are reasonable rather than burdensome. Situationships can lead to low self-worth, problems with intimacy, and even trauma. When the relationship is too much one-sided, it can create a toxic dynamic in which one person feels used or undervalued. The deeper story underneath all of this is one about vulnerability, the willingness to need someone, to be honest about that need, to risk being seen. It all is the price of entry for real intimacy. You cannot have genuine closeness without it, but for a generation that has absorbed record rates of divorce, that has learned to regulate its emotional life through performance of social media rather than through face-to-face connection, vulnerability can feel like the most dangerous exposure. The situationship is, in its deepest structure, a defense against that fear. It is a way of having someone without fully having them, or being known without fully risking exposure. The philosopher and psychologist Erich Fromm wrote that love is not a feeling that happens to you, but a practice you choose. A situationship suspends that choice indefinitely. And in suspending it, it offers an illusion of safety. If I never fully commit, I cannot fully lose. But what we are describing is a life lived at the threshold of connection, close enough to feel the warmth, never fully inside. If you are in a situationship right now, I want to ask you one question. Are you constructing meaning from small gestures, a longer text, an unexpected call? Because these have become the evidence you use to decide whether you're loved. If so, you're not in a neutral arrangement. You are in a relationship that is costing you your nervous system. Moving through this with integrity starts with one thing: naming what is actually happening based on behavior over time, not based on hope. Patterns do not lie. And ask for clarity. Say, I care about you and I need to know where this is going. It's not aggressive. Please, it's not being too much. It is simply refusing to live indefinitely in a space that was never designed to hold you. Because you want connection, you want to be chosen. These are not excessive demands. They are the fundamental longings of a human being, and they are worth honoring. Okay, so let me know if you are or you've been in a situationship, and if you did get out or it turned into something else. If you feel comfortable, please share in comments. Take care.